So, good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to another interview of the Shield Dude on a Couch. I'm your host, Hector, and tonight I am joined by Simon White. So, Simon White is part of the band Vosforis, which is a black metal band. And earlier this year, they released an album digitally, Cosmic Cenotaph. But we're here to talk about that album because it's going to get a proper vinyl release on December 6th. So Simon, he does music and vocals for the band. So first of all, Simon, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. It's sort of early evening, late afternoon here in London. I've just finished some work, so looking forward to the weekend, I think.
Yeah. So I listened to the album. I was listening to the promo because I didn't, I saw December 6th and I thought, this hasn't come out yet. But yes, it was out at the beginning of the year. So the band is a black metal band, but you also incorporate some industrial elements to it and some like cinematic feel to it. So give us a history of both 40s.
Um, yeah, so in terms of the music, um, uh, it was a little bit difficult how to categorize it. People who have listened hear different things and hear different influences. People tend to sort of maybe describe it more as melodic black metal. There's elements of death metal, doom, maybe like some symphonic stuff. For me, I felt that in terms of my tastes and interests in sort of extreme metal music and just other alternative genres like industrial, I was always inspired by bands like Nine Inch Nails and Typo Negative, and of course all the Norwegian bands in the sort of mid '90s, and particularly a band Satyricon. I really identified, particularly with the later, more modern production. Um, so I kind of, it's not really. I don't think that there are explicit elements of industrial in the music. I mean, there are sort of like there are sort of references and allusions to it. I think in places, particularly with the use of keyboards, maybe. But I think maybe in future recordings and albums, I'll try and bring that out a bit more. But I don't think maybe I leaned into it as much as I maybe could have. So I think it's a black metal album. I think it's got some industrial, but I don't think people would necessarily agree with that description. In terms of the the band or the project. Um, I think for a lot of people, there were a lot of people got creative during COVID and lockdown. I did as well, and I started working on this music. Um, I'd known Adrian for a couple of years at that point, and just sort of sent him some demos because we were always talking about doing something, and I sent him some demos. He liked it, and we sort of progressed with fleshing the songs out properly. At which point I involved people like Annabelle Aratney, who helped me greatly with my vocals and as well as arrangements, and then Richard Shaw, who helped me with. I had a few guitar lessons with him initially before I invited him to do some solos because I kind of
Yeah, because you
interviewed.
had a few guests from ex Cradle of Filth members.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So that was kind of interesting. I never it wasn't an attempt to collect ex Cradle alumni. What had happened was at the time that I got involved with Annabelle and Richard, they were still both in Cradle at that time, and I think I just remembered seeing them on Instagram, and Richard was advertising guitar lessons, and I thought, well, that's really cool. I'd love to do some guitar lessons with him. That's how it initially started. I had a few lessons with him, and we discussed theory and just guitar techniques. And then I'd said, hey, I'm writing these songs. Could you help me out? Just with like theory and that kind of thing. And then in my feed, Annabelle popped up, and she was offering vocal lessons, and I just thought that was really cool, because at the time I never really considered myself a vocalist. It was always just sort of a guitarist. You know, I play bass, I write music, and I was struggling to find vocalists and musicians to get involved with. So it was more of a necessity kind of thing. So I just figured, you know, like, how hard can black metal vocals be? Turns out it is quite a very challenging technique. So Annabelle has she's got along with a lot of experience in the industry and songwriting and playing in bands and touring and things like that. She's also got an academic background in voice and classical music. Which helped greatly with being able to help me understand how to use my voice in a sort of black metal or an extreme metal style.
Was this your first time singing on that, or at
Yeah,
least in the black metal style, or any
yeah,
type of?
absolutely. First time singing. I'd always, it was always, it was always something I wanted to try, and I just never really had a good enough reason or opportunity to do it. And then this came along, and I just figured, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, at least you got like a proper technique. What is the proper technique for black metal vocals? Because sometimes you listen to them and you think like it has to be straining, but there's a technique so you don't hurt yourself. What exactly is that technique that
Um,
you do?
Look, the thing to remember with this type of singing style, this contemporary singing style, is that you will do damage to your voice. It's definitely going to happen. So there are techniques that you can do to minimize damage to your vocal cords. It's really difficult to explain because you can't explicitly control too much of
Mhm.
your of the actual vocal cords. It's more like there's like implied control that you can do by the way that you hold your diaphragm, the placement of like your tongue and your palate and things like that. So there's a lot of experimentation and trial and error. You have to see what hurts, what doesn't. Um, and there are different strategies and techniques that you can employ. With maybe sometimes you can squat, and then that puts your diaphragm in a specific position, and the way that you open your throat and things like that. Um, there's sort of what's very interesting about singing in general is that like it's actually a product of your whole body.
Mhm.
You know, it's the nasal, it's the palate, it's the throat, it's how open it is, it's your diaphragm, it's how you stand, your posture, things like that. So it's not there isn't like one sort of thing that works, because also everyone's voices are different. Everyone has different abilities in what they can hear and what they can do, and you kind of got to like experiment and swim around for a bit to find what works. So I wouldn't, to be honest, I wouldn't have been able to figure it out by myself. I had to take a lot of tuition from not tuition, but tutorship from Annabelle. Sort of saying, try this, think about that, and we did everything. Also, interestingly, we did everything over Zoom. So
Oh,
I would
interesting.
basically I would stand here in my studio and with my mic, and then I had a way of routing the audio through Zoom. So we would uh, so I would basically just sort of like do some things with my voice, and she'd be like, yeah, maybe try this, try that, and then we would. But eventually, what I found was, just going in and recording, and just seeing how I sounded on recording, and
Mhm.
then just experimenting and just going and trying. There was just a lot of that, really.
And you produce with this record also with your other bandmate with Russ. So you produce this and uh, listening to the songs. I don't know if it's a concept record, but there's some themes on this record from uh, end of time and space, explorations inward to the human psyche. Tell me a little bit about the themes from for Cosmic Cenotaph.
That's a great question because this is a very broad um, it's a very broad concept. I would The interesting thing about I never really thought of it as a concept album because in general I find that black metal is highly conceptual.
Hmm.
Whether it's
And
you know
visual, yeah.
exactly, absolutely. It's one of the even though it's very dogmatic and the subject matter of black metal can be quite static, it is still a very highly conceptual genre. So that's why I didn't really think of it as a concept album, but just that it would be full of concepts. Uh, so, so with this one, I kind of thinking about, um, I started thinking about, um, just what were the things that interested me about life and the universe and, the sort of the deeper mysteries, sorry, of life in terms of our place our place on the planet with other people, with the greater universe and possibly what's outside of it. The sort of more occult um, elements of the less tangible, more hidden, invisible things. That we might feel or perceive or not, or the implied things and these are all very dense topics to sort of delve into. So I created this sort of broad framework that I thought could encapsulate all of those things, whether it was like UFOs or psychedelics or the occult or just how I felt or whatever it is that I was thinking about, whether it was our place in terms of the universe with other alien life and potential solutions to the Fermi paradox, for example. Um, uh, there wasn't enough space on the album to really give a lot of those topics.
No, there's a lot of topics, and just the name of the album, like Cosmic Cenotaph, which is like a cosmic tomb.
mm,
Like the whole universe is a tomb.
exactly, and it's also, I liked it because it was also a play on. It was also like a play on the concept because a cenotaph is typically a monument for dead bodies that can't be found. So you normally have war cenotaphs, for like soldiers that have died and you can't find them
Mm.
anymore. So I thought that that would be kind of paradoxical to pair that with the universe. You have a cenotaph for the universe, but where would that cenotaph go? Because the universe contains everything, so you would have to have the cenotaph in a different location to the universe to mark that. So I felt that that was kind of paradoxical and interesting from that perspective, what it might look like, to have something like that.
Yeah. So this is almost a black metal record with progressive tendencies.
Um, I don't know if I understand what you mean. I don't particularly like progressive music.
Okay.
Um, but I know exactly what you mean. I think it was I like bands like Arctures, for example, and
Mhm.
Ulver, was fantastic, and they still are. And so I was always inspired by, even with like a band like God. So I like that kind of like avant-garde, forward-thinking, kind of like weird black metal. That kind of, so that's kind of, which I think in some ways is progressive. So
Yeah,
I kind of like,
like a band. I think there's one in New York, Imperial Triumphant, that really does a lot of like stuff like that. Uh, so yeah.
yeah, I just, it's, the thing about black metal is that it's very dogmatic, um, uh, sort of a rigid framework for making music. But I think that if you, and it's not that I was trying to be different or trying to be too clever about it, but I think that there are still things that you can innovate and you can be quite, or that can be quite interesting to pursue, I think. within that framework, or even trying to extend it. But not suggesting that I'm some sort of black metal pioneer or anything like that.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
I
So
just
now that you're releasing this on vinyl on December 6th, I'm wondering, is the first half of the vinyl ending with Chalsus and the second with Intermezzo part three, which kind of divides? It's like you have 5 tracks and then you have the division, the 6 track, and the last 4 tracks.
Oh yes, I mean that's such a great observation because when I was thinking about
I'm aging myself because we older people think about, oh yeah, this is for the B sides, and younger people are like, what's a B side? Or like,
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. But what was really interesting about the track listing was that I had I had 10 songs that I'd written, landed up being just over 40 minutes. I never really anticipated that when I started arranging things that it would fall together in such a nice way. Um, it just happened to work that way. That it was it had this nice way of going from one side to the other. With the ambient instrumental part starting the B side, and you sort of going on this different type of journey towards the end of the album. Um, but like I never planned it that way during the songwriting. It's just that once all the songs were finished, it kind of just arranged itself in this nice, interesting way. I think it was a happy accident. I think.
Yeah, no, and it's an interesting record because even though it's black metal, I felt like it had some different things to it, and even the cover it looks different. It doesn't look like a typical like a lot of black metal, like the corpse paint, and they're
Mm.
talking about like evil stuff. This is like a more deep introspective type of black metal, like
Yeah.
what we're talking about. So I want to show the artwork. So this is the artwork, and it looks like very sci-fi, and even the name of the band. That's why I thought like maybe it has like progressive tendencies. So tell me a little bit about the artwork of this album, and what you're trying to convey with the artwork.
Okay. So so let me start with the name first
Okay.
because I think that I think that that could be quite interesting to talk about. When I first started thinking about the name for a band, I actually thought about this about 10 or 12 years ago, and I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool to have a band called Phosphorus? And as soon as I hit Metal Archives and went online, there were a million other bands called Phosphorus. And then I started looking at different language translations for the word phosphorus. And I found the Portuguese spelling, which was F O Phosforos, and I thought that was really cool. But there was I think there was I think there was some other reference that had that name, so I put the I on it, and then I kind of just put the name away, thinking, oh, no one will ever use this. So then, when it came to recording the album, I was like, yeah, I'm going to use the name Phosphorus. And then I went back on Metal Archives, and it turned out that there was a Finnish band called Phosphorus with the Portuguese spelling. And I was like, oh, damn, like, what am I going to do now? So I tried thinking of a new name for the band, and I spent weeks just thinking, and just everything was cheesy. I mean, if I was going to make a joke parody band, I could come up with a million silly names for a band, and it would be hilarious. But trying to find something that was, that was smart and that also sounded convincing and serious at the same time was very difficult. So eventually, just Annabelle said to me, "Why not just change the F to a V?" And that that was that. It was just it sort of passed the smell test. Essentially, I was like, it's not the worst, and I don't have anything better. Just go with it. Um, but in terms of the artwork, I was very fortunate to work with a guy called Stefan. He's a French artist. He had done some artwork for another band. I think it's the Lurking Fear. It's another band that Adrian and Thomas were in, and he had done a couple artwork. He had done some artwork for two of their albums, and it just looked really cool. So we got on, I started chatting to him. We got on really well, and so when we were talking about the album cover, what I did was I set up a Pinterest account where I was just sort of just like chucking like loads of images and things that I thought would be quite interesting. Um, and uh, um, when I'm just trying to think of the best way to describe this. I had an interest in sort of brutalist architecture because there's quite a bit around here in London, and
Mhm.
I thought it had, um, when I think back to a lot of the sort of sci-fi like Alien and things like that that I remember watching, when I was growing up, uh, um, that sort of like retro modern brutalist almost sort of feel to the to the movies. It
Yeah,
was
I had a an idea of what I when I look at it now, but I'll tell you which movie I think of.
so brutalist architecture and sort of like 70s sci-fi, let's say, like things like Alien, coupled with like 90s industrial and 90s black metal. This was sort of where my head was, visually. And then additionally to that, I was always fascinated by the Heaven's Gate cult. Uh, um, sorry, they were like a weird religious UFO cult called the Heaven's Gate cult,
Oh, yes, I
and
remember
it's
them.
like, yeah, in the 90s, and they had this big mass suicide in, I think it was in California or something like that. I can't remember where it was in America. I think it was the West Coast, something like that. And but they were famous for what was so compelling about what had happened when these people unfortunately died was that they all put themselves in this house, and they were wearing the same clothes, but they all had these Nike black sneakers on, and they covered themselves with these purple square like blankets or robes or cloth like over their bodies. And that's part of what this album was a reference to. If you've ever seen any of those images from the crime scenes, these the bodies were all draped in these purple shrouds um, over the bodies, and that's what I wanted to do here with the square, was to represent that shroud, and with the purple colors being a reference to those images. So there was also um, I don't know if you can show it, but if you Google the Heaven's Gate cult crime scene pictures,
Yeah, I don't know if I could show them, and maybe the video will get tagged because maybe
of
it's
course.
like a
But
brutal stuff. So, yeah.
anyone who's interested to Google it, you'll immediately see the reference I was trying to make with the cover art.
Yeah, there's actually a thrash metal band from New York that I talked to called Executioner, who they did a song this year about that cult,
Mm.
about the Ensgate, the Comet. Yeah, so yeah, they did a song about that. Only a thrash metal song, but yeah, it's interesting. Is there any of the songs on this album that reference that event?
Oh well, if you listen carefully on the first song, the opening track,
The Basilisk, yeah.
yeah, on the basilisk, there's an opening line that I'm singing. That's a direct reference to some of the to one of the last videos that their leader did. He said something like, "If you hate this world," I can't remember specifically what it was. It was like, and I can't remember my own lyrics, but basically,
Mhm.
I had taken a line or two from something they had published online, and I thought that was a cool sort of reference for anyone who. Obviously, now everyone will know the reference, but I thought it would be a cool little reference that if people knew, they would know what I was talking about.
Yeah, no, it's pretty interesting. And I thought, I saw the square thing. I didn't get there. I didn't know that it was about that, but I thought that it reminded me of. Do you remember Superman 2? When they put salt and every in that in the jail, that it's like that a shape thing like that.
You know what? I must have seen it as a child, but I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, the space cat, like their prism is like something like that, and it goes flying.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's
Also,
gotta
like
remind me of that.
and like 2001 Space Odyssey with the monolith,
Yes.
that's also a cool reference that I think I felt was in the cover there too.
Yeah, no, it looks very like spacey, the color, but I didn't know about the that crime and the thing with the purple
Yeah,
hoods that they. I didn't know that. So yeah,
yeah.
that's
If you Google it,
interesting, and yeah. So
I was,
so yeah, this album when I was listening to it, yeah, it sounds like searching for deeper meaning outside of the world. So it's
yeah,
like it's pretty, it's like a concept record, but it's not a concept record,
yeah.
but with all those themes. So but you were mainly inspired by that event.
I mean, not specifically.
Mhm,
It was, when I was, when I was collecting ideas and
mhm.
images, it was something that I felt, I just felt was just so weird, and it was like really, I wouldn't say postmodern, but it was just like such a, you know, it was just such an interesting comment on almost on American culture in a way. You know, this Nike branding, the this religious suicide cult, and then there's just this really wacky idea about being taken off the planet on a comet, and it just had all these really interesting, nostalgic, but really like twisted and very unsettling ideas associated. And I thought that that was an interesting feeling to think about in terms of what I wanted to present with the album. But it wasn't necessarily that the album this is the only thing that the album's about, or that I was inspired by this one thing. I
Mhm.
think that a lot of the topics on the album really have been things that I've been interested in for a number of years, like particularly with UFOs and psychedelics and things like that, and of course the occult, and just my general fascination with black metal culture and that kind of thing. So it was it was a collection of a lot of different things. But I don't want to, as powerful as the imagery of the Heaven's Gate cult suicides were, I don't want that to be the only thing associated with the album. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, there's different themes running through it. So when you were writing the lyrics for this, what's your process for lyric writing?
So what I would do, um, a lot of the time, like little phrases and things would come to me. So I would just kind of get my phone out and I'd just type a few notes out. So there was a lot of just sort of like daydreaming, and like when you have an idea, you might be working or you might be going to the
Hmm.
shops or whatever, and you might think like, just suddenly a line will, or a lyric will pop in your head, and you'll go, oh, that's really cool. I might write it down. So I was collecting like little phrases and turns of phrases and things that I thought were interesting. Other times, I would kind of like write like short little essays where I had this idea that I wanted to elucidate and expand on, and I'd write about it, and then I would think, and then I would sort of distill it into sort of bumper stickers that I think could work maybe as song lyrics. So there was like a process of taking ideas and then trying to distill them into song lyrics, and then of course having to try and work them into a musical piece, because the music and the lyrics were written at different times. So there was also a case of like, how do I fit this into this part? So then there was some editorializing that would happen of those smaller phrases and things like that. So it was an iterative process of like taking these broad concepts and then sort of distilling them down through several iterations to something that would work. Another technique that I developed was
Hmm.
uh, taking mushrooms. I had loads of ideas. It was like just so many. I got so many ideas and so many insights into myself and life and the universe, and in some cases I felt like I had received some sort of uh, uh, um, external knowledge in some cases where I felt like I was being communicated with, and a lot of those references and those literal thoughts and ideas that I had in those moments became lyrics on the album as well. So psychedelics um, definitely helped with the creative process and coming up with like some really cool ideas, and there were like whole like insights into technology and quantum mechanics and things that just became like just suddenly appeared to me, and I was just like, oh wow, that's such a crazy idea.
So when you were taking these mushrooms, did you have your phone next to you so you could write down the
A
ideas?
lot of the well, if you know, for anyone who's ever had a psychedelic trip, the last thing you know how to use is your phone.
I haven't had a psychedelic trip, so I have no idea.
Yeah,
Uh,
basically, like you don't understand how this works. You'll just look at it and go, I don't get it. But everything that I experienced and I saw and I thought I was able to remember. So as soon as the trip ended, because it's only about a couple of hours and then just suddenly like it ends, I was able to get to my computer and I could just start typing some ideas out and writing things down. So that happened several times where I was like I remembered everything clearly, and I still remember to this day. I still remember all of it very clearly, and then I was just able to just write it all down, and then as I described with the process of refining the lyrics, I was able to go back and expand and think more about the idea in a, you know, with a sober mind, and think about how I might express what I was trying to get at there.
so when you were on that mushroom trip, like were you at home? Where were you like
Um,
to experience the best
you know,
feel for this?
I you know, a couple times I was at home, other times I was sitting in the garden here. But most of the time I would get on my bike and I would ride through the parks. Because we've got a lot of here in Southeast London, there are a lot of very big green parks that, you know, you don't get a lot of people in. So, and they've got a lot of like wooded forest areas and things like that, and it's great for tripping. Like I would just get on my bicycle and I'd go for a ride for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
And particularly in the summertime, you could just go sit in the sun under a tree, and no one would bother you, and you could just sit there and like look at the sky for a couple of hours and think some interesting thoughts. You know, it wasn't, you know, like in terms of psychedelics, like mushrooms is very mild, at least in my experience. You know, I felt very happy to be outside and just experiencing nature and having a different perspective for a couple of hours, I would say.
Yeah, and that helped you with the creative process.
Oh,
Uh yeah,
absolutely. From
yeah,
a
it helped.
from
Yeah.
a conceptual and a lyrical perspective, the psychedelics were amazing. I mean, I couldn't write music. I definitely couldn't do that. But definitely from lyrics and concepts, it was amazing. It was really, really, really helpful and interesting.
So good for lyrics, bad for music.
Yeah,
You,
like you,
yeah.
yeah. The thing about like when you're tripping, like music just sounds like so weird. It's really difficult to. I used to listen to, well, actually, I still do quite often, but when I was tripping, I used to listen to a lot of Nine Inch Nails and Tool, and the
Oh,
music, like,
and with the visuals, like I've been
yeah,
to a
yeah.
Tool concert, and yeah, it's very trippy. Yeah.
Oh man, I've taken mushrooms at a couple of Tool concerts. It's so good, so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd listen to Tool, I'd listen to a lot of Nine Inch Nails, and the music just took on like a whole new dimension. So,
Where can I get these mushrooms? Because I just get the normal ones that I used
oh,
to cook my my ex with.
they're illegal.
So yeah, I can get them. Yeah, yeah,
I,
yeah.
I can't I can't tell you that.
You can
Uh,
divulge that information,
well, I mean,
but
it's just, I think they're illegal in the UK, and I think they're
oh,
illegal in most countries. So
I think
probably
so too. Yeah,
yeah.
I think so too.
So if any if the police are watching this, this is all a lie. This never happened.
Or was it? Ah, you never know. But
This could
the
be
only
a
thing
very long trip.
I remember in Paris, I drank a little bit of absinthe
Hmm.
because it's illegal. It was, but I don't think it was that strong, so nothing happened to me.
Yeah,
But
yeah. You can get truffles in Amsterdam. That's they've
Oh,
it's
I went to Amsterdam back in 2005, and
yeah,
but yeah, but mostly what was there was a lot of weed uh
yeah, yeah,
at
yeah,
the time.
yeah,
But
for
yeah,
sure.
like it's interesting. No, you talk about it, and you're so calm and polite, and you seem all together, because sometimes you talk to people that are like, they're like
Yeah,
really out there. But yeah, it's good that it helped you with like the lyric writing. And this album, even though it's black metal, it feels like you're otherworldly. So it's different for black metal, because a lot of time black metal is like you think of like the forest and evil stuff, and this felt like you were out in space. So it
yeah.
was pretty interesting, and yeah, I enjoyed it. So when you're uh for you mentioned like you love Nine Inch Nails too, black metal, like if you had to, I remember when I started the channel, I did a video of being in a desert island and taking 5 records with you. Like if you were in that scenario where you could listen to 5 records forever, which 5 records would it be and why?
Oh, great. I love this kind of question because this is so much fun. It's always interesting to be able to talk about the things that we
Yeah.
like musically, and it's interesting to see what other people like. But definitely Nine Inch Nails, The Downward Spiral, Typo Negative, October Rust, um, Satyricon, The Rebel Extravaganza, um, Rebel Extravaganza at least, and then probably it's difficult to say because I don't know whether with Metallica I don't know whether to choose Ride the Lightning or Master of Puppets. You know,
That's a tough choice.
yeah, probably Master of Puppets. I
I
think
like it
they'll
better, Master of Puppets. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I'd say Master of Puppets, and then the fifth one. I really don't know, man. Oh, I know. Um, Devin Townsend, Ocean Machine, the first Devin
Oh,
Townsend. Yeah, that one. That one's amazing. It's such a brilliant album.
oh yeah,
That one.
Devin Townsend's a genius. Yeah.
Yeah. I got into Devin through Strapping Young Lad in the
Mm.
'90s with the City album, and then after that he that was when he first did the solo stuff, which was the Ocean Machine album. And I remember hearing that, and I was like, I listened to that album throughout high school, uh, and eventually a couple of years ago he actually played it in London end to end,
Mhm.
and it was just amazing. But yeah, definitely that album. Certainly,
Awesome.
there's a lot of
And as we're talking and filming this, The Fragile by Nine Inch Nails uh,
yeah,
turns 25 years old this
it does.
Saturday.
Yeah,
So yeah. So obviously, when people see this, it's already turned 25 years old. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a great album. So yeah, I think all of the influences creep into Cosmic Cenotaph, but in a way that's subtle. Maybe for I know that you're going to release it now on vinyl. Are you already thinking of album number two?
yes. I'm actually working on the second one at the moment.
Yeah, and I know this band is you, and you have someone else, and you have guest musicians. Is this going to be like a project that is more of like a studio project, or at some point would you like to play some shows with this band?
Oh, 100%. I'm speaking to some people at the moment about setting a live band up. Originally, I wanted Adrian to play drums live, and he had initially agreed to that, but unfortunately, there were some clashes in terms of schedules and time commitments where he was no longer able to do that, unfortunately. I've been speaking to several other drummers at the moment, and as you can imagine, they all listen to the album and go like, "It's Adrian Erlinson. I can't play like that."
Yeah.
so, yeah, there is. I'm hoping to have something ready towards the end of the year, beginning of next year for live shows. And then yeah. But on the second album, I'm hoping. Um, it'll still be, I think, the usual suspects for the second album. I'm hoping.
Mm.
I haven't spoken to anyone explicitly, but I would like to work with the same people again doing the album. But in terms of a live band, it'll be a different group of people. So
Awesome. And
I would,
I have the site for people who want to pre-order. Here it is, Inner Hell Records.
yes,
That's where you can pre-order the vinyl.
yeah,
Here you have Vosforis, and here's the album where you can buy it, pre-order it. There's shirts, everything that you want to get about the band. So yeah, I'll post this link in the bio here so people can know where to get the album.
yeah.
So Simon, I want to thank you for taking some time of your day to chat with me here from London to my couch in Puerto Rico about the album Cosmic Cenotaph, cults, mushrooms, and metal.
Yeah, pretty
It's
much.
been a good conversation. So, anything you like to say to the people before we go?
Oh well, listen. Thank you for having me. It's I love talking to people about music and the things that I'm interested in. Thank you very much for spending time with me too. And to everyone out there, thank you for checking the music out. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you continue to enjoy more music that I have to release. And please buy the vinyl because I'm in a lot of debt.
That's very honest. Please, yeah. Vinyl is expensive, so yeah, I
Oh,
get you.
I,
So
the entire
so
thing
yeah,
is self-funded. I
yeah.
couldn't. There was no there was no. I had to set up my own label. There was no label interest in the album because it wasn't even a band at that point when we were talking to record labels. So I've had to do everything myself.
Yeah, so
It's
it's a labor of love. So
yeah,
Cultures, you heard it here. The album is out digitally right now,
yeah,
Cosmic Cenotaph. But if you want that vinyl, pre-order for December 6th of this year,
yeah.
so you can get that copy. So uh, until next time, Couchers, this is Hector, the shield dude on a couch, and I'll see you all right here on the couch. Thank you and goodbye.